yesterday, an interesting moment in the NFL, and I actually think that that's the nicest thing I could say, that it was interesting, because you had the first ever active NFL player openly announce that he is gay. Now, we had Michael Sam, and Michael Sam was openly gay, but Michael Sam was never on an active roster in a football game. You know, he was drafted by the Rams, but he did not end up playing in a regular season game. And so this announcement is historic in many ways. This is Carl Nassib, who's a defensive end for the Las Vegas Raiders, and a guy who gets regular time and plays a lot of snaps and is definitely going to be on the field this September for the Raiders. Here is Carl Nassib yesterday.
What's up, people? I'm Carl Nassib. I'm at my house here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Just want to take a quick moment to say that I'm gay. I've been meaning to do this for a while now, but I finally feel comfortable enough to get it off my chest. I really have the best life. I got the best family, friends, and job a guy could ask for. I'm a pretty private person, so I hope you guys know that I'm really not doing this for attention. I just think that representation and visibility are so important. I actually hope that one day videos like this and the whole coming out process are just not necessary. But until then, I'm going to do my best and do my part to cultivate a culture that's accepting, that's compassionate, and I'm going to start by donating $100,000 to the Trevor Project. They're an incredible organization. They're the #1 suicide prevention service for LGBTQ youth in America, and they're truly doing incredible things. And I'm very excited to be a part of it, to help in any way that I can, and I'm really pumped to see what the future holds.
Carl Nassib had recently signed a big deal with the Raiders last year, a 3-year, $25 million deal as a free agent with nearly $17 million guaranteed. So Carl Nassib is going to become the first ever active gay player in the NFL that plays in an NFL game. As I mentioned, Michael Sam never played in an NFL game. Now, Michael Sam came out back in 2014, so we are now 7 years removed from that. And here's why I think yesterday was big, and then in some ways not big. I think it's big just because, as Nassib says, representation's important for children. Children, youth, and I think people by and large, but certainly when you are developing yourself and your life and your identity and your goals, it is supremely important to see somebody or hear somebody that you can relate to. It makes you feel not alone. And people in America, and people across the world certainly, but certainly here in the U.S., deal with loneliness and isolation a lot. As connected as we are with social media, the internet, and technology, a lot of people just feel alone a lot of the time. And you know when you feel the most alone usually? When you're a kid. When you're a kid, because you're not an adult yet. You can't do adult things yet. Kids can be really brutal. You can't really speak your mind authentically yet because you're not quite mature enough yet, and you're going through who you will become. I know there was a lot of pockets of my life that I felt very lonely as a child, even though I had wonderful friends and an incredibly loving family and a brother and sister, but I always at times felt, boy, does anybody feel like me? Do they sound like me? Do they think like me? And I just think that that's important. And as young people grapple with coming out and internal feelings and all the types of things that young people that have to try to wrestle with their identity, whether you're heterosexual, homosexual, whether you are a certain ethnicity, religion, race, creed, whatever that is, it just is important to see or hear somebody that you feel you can relate to because you feel lonely a lot. That's the first part. That what Carl Nassib did yesterday was A, giving young people who are looking for somebody to relate to, just somebody to do that with. You could only imagine a high school football player or a JV football player or even a collegiate football player looking at an NFL player that says this, and they are feeling the same things, and perhaps worried about how people might feel or think or what have you, and seeing this and just being like, whoa, there's somebody like me in the NFL. I just think that that's so, so important. And I also think that what Carl Nassib said of, let's make this a positive. I'm going to dedicate money to the Trevor Project, which helps young people know that there is a place for them and a safe place for them, is of incredible importance. And that is taking your platform and that is using it to help the next generation. And who couldn't appreciate that? I mean, to me, that's everything, really. Here's where I think it's unimportant, which is great. 7 years ago, the Michael Sam thing kind of blows some people's heads back, and there's a huge conversation, and Michael Sam is this kind of epicenter of sports conversation and this intersection of culture. Even just 7 years later, Carl Nassib is not really that. It's an announcement. It's a story. It's not what Michael Sam was. And when Carl Nassib says in that video, I hope that in the future there doesn't have to be an announcement, there absolutely won't be, because we've already seen a growth from Sam to Nassib in 7 years. And 7 years from now is going to be different as well. So Nassib doesn't have to hope. It's going to happen. It's already happening. The evidence is happening. And the other thing is, people that get squirrely about this type of stuff, people that get uncomfortable because of religious beliefs or personal beliefs, should note that it has nothing to do with football players or football locker rooms or anything like that. It has to do with us as the audience. And that's a shame, because there's been gay players in the NFL for a long time and their teammates knew, and it didn't matter. Carl Banks, when the Michael Sam thing was going on, was a member of 2 Super Bowl teams for the New York Giants, and said we had 2 openly gay players in the locker room. And everybody knew it. And it was not a thing. It did not matter. It didn't matter. Now, this is the 80s. That's 35 years ago. It didn't matter. You can go back before that. You can go back to Vince Lombardi in the 60s, who was very supportive of the gay community because he had a gay brother. And you think modern players care about that? They don't. That one of their teammates might be gay or is gay. They didn't care then. They don't care now. Can you ball? Can you help us win? It's all that matters. It's really, and it sounds very Pollyanna, but it's true. They just don't care. Unfortunately, the audience cares, and there's people out there that will judge a lifestyle, which is unfortunate, but they don't care. And so when Carl Nassib makes this announcement, and probably all of his teammates knew already, maybe some of them didn't, but probably all of them knew. But, you got to make an announcement for the public, for us, which is just not going to become a thing very soon, because this wasn't that big a deal as it is. And that's important. It's just important to remember that young people are looking for other people to emulate or to relate to, so that they feel like what they're going through internally is not alone. And Nassib provides that. And that's just the most important thing. And that's why putting people in position of influence or power or voices that are not traditionally put in those positions is really, really important, because it just creates an identifier. And it just creates I could do that, or I'm like that. And it gives you a little bit more confidence, a little bit more stability, a little bit more, I belong. That's all. That's all that sometimes is needed to change everything. I belong too. And it doesn't matter about sexual orientation or age or ethnicity or gender. That stuff doesn't ultimately matter, as we all know. Unfortunately, some of us are taught that matters, but it doesn't. What matters is finding a place that you belong. That's really the only thing that matters, to not feel isolated and alone, no matter what you're going through, whether it's an addiction whether it's something internally that you're dealing with, whether it's a mental illness, whether it's a health illness, whether it's an identifier, whether it's something with your family or your career or your job or a preference or something like that, a life decision. All that matters is finding a place where you belong, no matter where that is, no matter what that is, as long as that is a healthy outlet that you're not harming other people. That's really the only thing in life that is of the utmost importance. And so Carl Nassib and others like him providing that type of place is just really important. So good stuff yesterday, positive steps forward, and Nassib is going to go back and just become a defensive end for the Raiders, and people are not really going to talk about it, and that's called progress.